It's a funny story how I started.
Yeah.
When I was in primary school at Arthur Phillip High School, they used to do religion, and I basically wasn't allowed to do religion. So they used to put me in a little room and give me pencils and paper, and I started to draw. Basically, I just always picked art at school, and then there was a stage where I didn't do art, and then I started again at year 11 and 12. And I just found that I was just not bad at it, needed a bit of guidance, got better, and then totally enjoyed it, loved it, did 3 in art, and applied to go to COFA, College of Fine Art, which is part of New South Wales University at the moment. And I was lucky enough to get accepted. And I did a double major, painting and design. And I specialised in landscape painting and my design work on the side. So that's how I basically got into art. I basically always wanted to enter the Archibald, and I needed to paint someone that I knew so I could feel some sort of connection, someone from my community. And I did not know Dr. Riffy at that stage. And my mother, because of her history with him and his family, especially being very good friends with his wife Lana, she was able to put me in contact with him. But I was very familiar with his work in the community, and I thought he was pretty much an Aussie legend. So that contact put me in a position where I could do a portrait and submit it to the Archibald with the mind of submitting it here also. I wanted to do both. So for me, it was more about the experience of entering the Archibald, and then after that, entering into this prize. I've researched several different methods of painting portraiture. I'm not traditionally a portraiture painter, and the method, I'm a very technical painter. If I'm doing a large canvas, I tend to do a grid system, scale it up from the image. I normally work off an image, and I'll draw a grid on the image, and then I'll scale it up to the canvas, and we'll draw the lines on the canvas. From there, I've been painting a lot of paintings in watercolour, where I've painted images and faces. Oil paint is totally different. So my research led me to discover a technique called the Venetian method. That method I found suited me the best, where once I've done the grid on the photograph and transposed it to the canvas, I do a fine line drawing of the facial features. Once I've completed that, I would use burnt umber and do a very fine, with a rigging brush, an outline of the facial features and the shape of the face and the head and the hair. And then mix or wash with burnt umber and glazing medium number 1, and just paint the whole face and head one tone. While it's still wet, with a rag or a cotton bud, you can actually wipe off the paint, which brings up the highlights, and then adding more paint to the darker areas. And what you end up with is a monotone image, and that forms a base of the face. Once that dries, then you can keep working, adding more detail, but more importantly, adding colour. It gives the painting a lot more depth, perspective, and more of a richness. That's the basic face. For me, a portrait is about the eyes. Then you start working on the eyes. Oh, I feel stoked. I feel very, very happy, very proud. It feels really good. I've been painting for like 40 years, and I've been entering prizes pretty much for the last 5 to 6 years. I've entered about a dozen prizes. It's important to me that someone like Dr. Riffy, my subject, gets more exposure, and I was really happy about that, because he's a pretty special type of guy, and he's done so much work in the community. So that was also what made me so happy for him also.